Today, we are going to be talking a little bit about certificate transparency logs, kind of speak through how attackers are using them today and why you should be on top of them too. My name's Danielle Patterson. I am business development here at Keytos, and I want to introduce Igal Flegman, our co-founder and CEO.
Hi, so I'm Igal Flegman, co-founder of Keytos. I started my career at Microsoft working in PKI and cryptography, and now we co-founded Keytos to make PKI and identity easy for everybody, and that's what we're going to be talking today about. We're going to talk about certificate transparency logs, something that most people have never heard of, and we'll talk about how it can help you improve.
Also, Igal, I'm going to have to just full disclosure. We're also going to talk about Easy Monitor, our newest product that we just released that we're super excited about, and hopefully how it can help a ton of enterprises out there become more secure, save costs, and just do things a little bit easier, right? So I'm going to hand it off to you. Give us a history lesson. I'll zone out here for a minute, but please.
I'm going to start you with this history lesson that I know you love history, so let's get started with history. Google in 2011 suffered a man-in-the-middle attack where a CA got compromised and they were using it to create certificates to impersonate Google and do man-in-the-middle attack for their users. Google found that out because of a forum where a user complained that they couldn't access their services unless they were using a VPN. So then in 2013, Google launched transparency logs. And my computer keeps freezing. I'm sorry about this.
I can kind of pick it up from there. Yeah, we can hear you fine. It might just be weird on your end.
Just take your time. On my end, so I'm just gonna do my thing, and if you stop hearing me, just let me know or something.
Yeah.
In 2013, Google launched certificate transparency logs, where it's basically a blockchain type of thing, if we explain in layman's terms, that it's cryptographically safe and every single certificate has to be there. And they enforced it by forcing everybody in Chrome that any certificate that is used in Chrome to be monitored in those CT logs. And then every company has to monitor those logs to make sure that no one is issuing rogue certificates on their behalf.
Got it. So just like a quick, dumb it down for me. So Google suffers a man-in-the-middle attack. They were completely unaware until an end user said, hey, why can I not log into Google unless I'm on my VPN? So Google does a little bit more deep dive. They try to rectify the issue by launching this certificate transparency logs. And then being, most of the internet, they forced everybody then to monitor these logs, right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Walk me through a little bit of, the nuts and bolts of how CT logs work, what they are, what happens.
Yeah, so CT logs are very transparent to the user. The user doesn't really know that it's going on. So you request your certificate. The certificate authority creates that certificate, and it registers that in multiple CT logs at once. And you get your certificate, and you don't really know that that's going on. So Google did a great job there at kind of like isolating that and making sure that it's very seamless for the user. The user doesn't know that that's going on. Got it.
So let's take it a little bit step further and talk a little bit about phishing. So we know that 80% of successful attacks start with a phishing expedition. For some reason, myself included, we've got this idea of this super genius hacker in a dark room, 14 monitors that finds like this perfect, brilliant backdoor, but that's really not the case. What we see is that the vast majority of successes start with spoofing an end user into entering credentials on an unsafe site, right? And it's been so successful that from 2020 to 2021, phishing is up over 150%. So as a result, we see a lot of things in the market. We know companies are now spending millions upon millions of dollars on phishing training for the employees or their associates, end user, here's the thing, those millions and millions of dollars, totally useless because no training is going to work if real domains are actually being used for those phishing attacks, right? And of
Yeah.
course, we see the federal government kind of step in a little bit. And DHS is now requiring all federal agencies to monitor CT logs for man in the middle and domain takeover attacks, right?
Yeah. And we have seen those attacks in the wild. So this is not something that is just happening in theory and we're saying like, oh, hackers might take use of this. Like this is happening out there. And here's an example of someone just grabbing those empty websites and using that to impersonate Microsoft. And they're just adding it as if they're Microsoft. They created the site that looks exactly the same. And they're making you download this MP3 player. And we can see here that it's still someone having to go and tell them like, hey, I think this site is compromised. You should probably look into it.
All right, Eagle, I'm also going to point out, seen this post, obviously, a consumer reaching out to Google saying, hey, something is a little bit fishy here, right? And I'm just looking at who responded. Surprise, surprise. Who was that?
Oh yeah, it's me. and we have, and as I mentioned in that tweet, we have found over 30,000 vulnerable subdomains in Azure. And this was while we were creating Easy Monitor. We found this vulnerability that it allows you to take over some domains and create an SSL certificate and basically just take it over by just knowing that a domain was hosted in Azure before.
Got it. So we found 30,000 of millions of different domains on Azure. And again, I think we all have this perception of certain companies are secure, right? Like the thought of like Microsoft being vulnerable is very weird. In these 30,000 subdomains that we've identified with Easy Monitor, is it true that it's really these smaller mid-sized shops that might not have the resources to stay on top of this, or is vulnerability across the board from Fortune 500 on down?
It's across the board. So basically, it's all over. If we have found from Microsoft, we have actually worked with them to close over 1,000 domains that they have had, just like the one in the tweet. And we have also worked with smaller companies, anything in between. And now that you brought up companies we have worked with, it's important to shout out the two only ones that we were able to take over the domain, but we were not able to get a certificate just because they had it locked down, was FedEx and Lego. So if you're shipping through FedEx or you're going to Lego Adventures, you can be sure that they have a good security team assuring that no one is impersonating their sites.
So shout out to them. It's
Yeah.
really interesting to me.
Yeah, and so how do we do it? And the answer is very simple with Easy Monitor. So we take care of all the monitoring, we take care of all the PKI complexities, and we just alert you when something comes up. And we don't only do the monitoring that you would think of CT logs. That's not in our DNA. We go above and beyond, and we actually offer a suite of way more capabilities. That can you jump into those, Danielle?
I'd love to. And again, just interrupt me, and I'm going to ask you to kind of expand upon these things that might just be a titch over my head. So, of course, we're going to monitor for unauthorized certificate issuances, right? That's basically our bare bones. But the other cool thing that we can do for everybody is we're going to alert on expiring certificates, which I think is really important in this case. When we look at, I think we were talking about this the other day, you said 80% of companies have suffered an outage.
That's correct. So 80% of companies have suffered an outage in the last 2 years. And so it's almost everybody. And the reason for a certificate related outage. And it's usually because a certificate expired and people are managing them with spreadsheets or managing them with calendar invites. So, they set a calendar invite to renew that certificate, and then that person leaves the company, and no one else knows that that certificate has to be rotated. So in here, we go through the certificates. We find the ones that are about to expire that haven't been rotated, but we also go through your endpoints. We see where that certificate is installed, and we scan that endpoint and make sure you have installed it, because you might have renewed it, installed it in 4 out of the 5 services, and the 5th one expires and you're having an outage. So we go through that. We also, now that we're scanning your endpoints, we might as well do other scans. So we check at HTTPS enforcement. We check that you're using the correct cryptography algorithms, and all this stuff that we basically become kind of like your SSL expert in-house.
Awesome. And maybe you can talk to me just a little bit more about making sure on a cryptographic level that our customers and our users are where they need to be. Like, what's changed from where they were at maybe yesterday and where they need to be today?
Yeah, so there is a little bit of change. We're moving to the cloud. Everything is moving certificate based. It's moving passwordless. So before, you were using kind of like spreadsheets to manage certificates, internal and external. Now you have hundreds and thousands of external certificates, as well as millions of internal certificates that you might use for computer-to-computer authentication, IoT authentication, and you have to manage all that. Obviously, it's no longer scalable in one little spreadsheet. And there's tools. Obviously, we have EasyCA, which allows you to manage that as well. And there's other tools that you can use to manage it. But if you're still doing it manually, there might be some that's slid through the cracks. And that's where Easy Monitor goes through and finds those certificates and lets you know, so you don't have that outage.
Got it. So I do want to touch on, again, you hit the nail on the head with the fact that our goal is not to just, meet bare minimum requirements. I think really what our vision here at Keytos is to look 4 years into the future, right? And to look at making things affordable, scalable, and ultimately much more secure on the day-to-day with an easier end user experience, right? So Easy Monitor, it's going to monitor for new subdomains. It's also going to give you proactive alerts on subdomains that contain your domain. Why is that important, Yigal?
Yeah, so as you mentioned phishing earlier, it's something that is really growing, and attackers are getting very smart about it. So before, it used to be harder and everything. Now they realize that computers read right to left and humans read left to right. So if they do yourcompany.com.badguy.com, you're just going to read yourcompany.com, and you're going to click and enter your information. So they're doing that. So we have that information, and we also look for like misspellings, changing an I for an L, and so on, that they might be sites being used for phishing, as well as obviously the domain takeover. That one, they're using your real domain that I also didn't mention before. But one of the things we found with those ones is sometimes those like domains that would like slip through the cracks for large companies, it was like summer sale or employee appreciation, those little things that it's like a quick, make a decision, enter your information, and you'll get a discount or you'll get something for free, which is perfect for phishing. So we try to cover phishing on both sides.
I would totally do that. Full disclosure there.
Yeah.
So again, Easy Monitor is gonna, prevent, the situation Google got into by alerting on any certificates that are issued by a new certificate authority, right?
Yeah, of course. That's the original. So we have to monitor that one.
This last generalized bullet point, we also do new vulnerabilities monitoring. Can you dig a little bit deeper into that and tell me more?
Yeah, that one. So one of the things we do is we are cryptographic experts. So we find these vulnerabilities, how we found the Azure one. There's another one that we also found and that we're reporting. Obviously, all those ones we will report and protect our users right away. And once the official disclosure is out, we'll tell everybody else as well. And also, we keep up with the latest in SSL technologies and all those issues. Like there was a Let's Encrypt issue last year that some certificates were revoked. Same with Microsoft. So all those we will let you know, and we will give you step-by-step instructions of this is how you remediate this. So we become kind of like your SSL expert in-house without you having to actually figure out all that and do that full-time job of keeping up with cryptography, which for most people is not as entertaining as for the people that work at Keytos. And by the way, if it's entertaining for you, we're always hiring. So
Awesome. So I think we've kind of covered the
Sorry.
basics. I really wanted to open it up to anyone attending the live webinar and see what type of questions that the group has.
Awesome.
All right. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about not only obviously doing proactive monitoring, alerting on external networks, but Eagle, can you talk a little bit more about Easy Monitor's capability on those internal networks as well?
Yeah, so external networks is kind of easy for us, like you just go into those CT logs and monitor those. But when it comes to internal network, you have to be in the network and you don't have those CT logs. So what we do is we go to the CAs with ADCS and we ask for those certificates. What are all the certificates that you have been issued? And then we use those certificates and that information and the endpoints that we find in your DNS records to scan your network. Also, if you provide us an IP address range, we will scan that IP address range and we'll give you that same kind of information on your certificates, if you're using weak ciphers, if you're not following best practices, if they're not valid, all these little things that you might have a problem with internally, we will let you know. And obviously expiration, we will let you know with that as well. And we display that in our dashboard. And you have like a full dashboard with all the health of all your services, internal and external.
And I do love our Easy Monitor dashboard. I think it's phenomenal. But I also want to talk about a lot of our developmental efforts recently, which has been focused on SIEM and really integrating with the existing IT infrastructure and management overview. So can you talk a little bit about how we integrate there?
Yeah, of course. So obviously, a lot of companies are having a SIEM to have a central alerting system, and we want to plug in where our users are. As most of our products are called, they're easy something. We're trying to make cryptography and security easy. So we're going to meet you where you are. We have our dashboards that you can see there and see all your health. But we also have email alerting. So if you want it to be sent to an alias, we send it there. And also if you have your SIEM, we send it there where you could have special alerts. You could have automation that takes care of certain things, or even the alert routing to the right person in your team. So we integrate with your SIEM and we meet you wherever you are.
I want to hit again the alert. So let's say we identify a vulnerability. We can obviously set up that automated alert. You can view it in your dashboard, but like, how are we going to help our customers remediate that? Like, do they then have to just sort it out?
No, our alert actually includes like very good information of like, hey, we found a similar domain, like contact this person and do this, or like, hey, we found your Azure dangling DNS. This is how you solve it, and we give you step-by-step instructions on how to do it. And even we explain, and even our docs in many of our products, we have step-by-step instructions of like, this is what the problem is, this is what it's cost, and you can really deep dive in, okay, I really want to know the nitty-gritty details, or just give me those 5 steps and I'll get it done and I'll move on to the other 20 things that I have to get done.
Got it. And, we also, I believe, pick up the phone when our customers call, right?
Yeah, of course. Our customer service is amazing. And obviously, depending on the plan, you could even have it that you have the professional like engineers working on the software answer the phone to you within 1 hour, any time of the day, any day of the week, 365 days of the year. So we have amazing plans for that as well.
Got it. And I know this makes you uncomfortable, so I really want to thank you, Igal, for like going through the salesy thing with me. No, it's not like your fun place. But thank you. I'm super excited about Easy Monitor kind of kind of hitting the market, and I think it's the perfect timing for it. So talk a little bit about next steps, Yigal.
Yeah, so you all joined a webinar, so now you all have homework. So thanks for joining. And we have two next steps. The first one is go to portal.easymonitor.io and check your domain for free. So if you go in there, you enter your domain, we'll check our database of the compromised Azure domains, and we'll let you know if you're vulnerable to that vulnerability for free. We don't keep your domain. We don't do any crazy logging. So just go in there, do that. And that's our way of giving back to the security community, that we think that any vulnerability should be discoverable for free. And then if you want to talk about how to protect your infrastructure in the future and protect against all the things that we talked about, I would encourage you to talk to anybody in the team, go into our site and request talking to one of our experts, and we will help you understand your whole setup and how we can help you secure it.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Eagle. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy day to join us through the live webinar. I also want to thank everybody that finds a few minutes, as they can slip into the day and watch this as we post it. Thanks again for joining Keytos. We really look forward to connecting.